Welcome to the ECE Classroom Podcast with your host, Susie Begin. Inspiring early childhood educators every day. Hello and welcome to the ECE Classroom Podcast. I'm your host, Susie Begin, and today I have a special guest here to talk all about play-based learning. My special guest, Erica, has been in business for over 23 years. She is the owner of a multi-location childcare centers, I should say, in Rhode Island. And she also hosts a podcast called The Childcare Director's Chair. So welcome to the show, Erica.
Thank you, Susie. I'm so happy to be here.
So first, tell us, what are the names of your childcare centers?
So they're all called Family Tree, but so one is our Early Learning Center, which does infant through preschool. Then we have our small building across the street, which is one of our original buildings, and we call that Family Tree Pre-K program. And then we have a larger school-age program down the street, which is 100% just school-age and summer camp, which houses about 85 students, and that's our after-school programs.
Wow, that's wonderful. So tell me a little bit about how you guys do play-based learning. What does play-based learning mean to you as a childcare center owner, and how you run your childcare centers?
Sure. Well, play-based learning to me means that, well, first of all, it should be fun and it should be engaging, but also have a learning goal in mind, right? So a lot of people think play-based means just like not structured and just do what you want, right? We set up intentional materials and we guide children intentionally on things that we think they should know or be able to do. And we do a lot of observation based too, the way that children use those materials, right? So, I think, play-based is something that really makes learning fun from the beginning. And so I feel like when we do that, it creates lifelong learners and then children want to learn. And I also think as a teacher, right, we spend, some of us 8-9 hours in a classroom, some of us longer. I think too, it makes teaching fun. I think, when you're discovering things together and how things work and why things work, is fascinating. I love learning and I love teaching. So I always think it's cool. And as a teacher, I love to see how the children use the materials. We as teachers this is the measuring tape. So we use it to measure, which is true. But in a play-based program, we end up using it for lots of things that maybe be outside measuring, right? So I always think that is fun and interesting and unique how each child decides to use the materials. I think that when you are intentional in your practice and what you're doing, play-based makes a lot of sense. And here in our state, we use something called the Rhode Island Early Learning Standards, and there's 9 different domains. So as an owner, when I am selecting the materials that we're going to have in the classroom, we always have that intention in mind to make sure we have a well-rounded curriculum.
So a lot of times I find with educators, they get bogged down by a to-do list, right? Like we need to do this and then this and then this. How do you get them to slow down and kind of really play with the children, really engage in play rather than worried about cleaning up or what's the next thing we're going to do? How do you get them to stay in the moment and just kind of engage in play?
Well, I love that you asked that question, Susie. So thank you. I really think that comes from the top, because when you're hiring people and you let them know what your expectations are and what the standards are in your program. And when I mean standards, I don't mean like early learning standards, but the standards, your expectations, for your teaching staff and your expectations of what you want children to be able to do when they leave your program, what you want them to be able to take away from your program. I think, it really does start from the top. So we tell people, when they come in on a tour, this is the place for children. And because parents will be like, no, you gotta sit. I'm like, no, they can touch the things. It's a place made for children. Go ahead and let them touch the books on the shelf. Go ahead, and making everything accessible, I think is really important. So, to have your teachers understand that the materials are there for the children to use and they should always be accessible. So I think it's during the conversations. I think it's during your onboarding process. I think it's through your daily expectations and conversations with your staff. What's the culture of your program? If it's a place where kids get messy and kids play and kids leave sometimes dirty, that's a good day.
Yeah, I like how you said culture of the program. That's definitely something to consider. You said it starts at the top, right? It starts with the owner, the supervisors, the management team working with the educators to understand what is their role in the classroom and in terms of what you said, are children allowed to get messy? Are children allowed to, play with their whole bodies? If they want to paint, are they allowed to use their arms? Rather than just, a paintbrush.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about setting that culture, that ability for, I think, freedom and freedom of choice too. I think a big part of play has a lot to do with freedom and just
Yes.
allowing freedom to happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, also when you think about your staffing, here in Rhode Island, I don't know if you guys do this in Canada, but we have something called the Individual Professional Development Plan. And that's where you sit down with your teacher and you work together to decide what professional development trainings they'll take for the year. And then you want to make sure that it's well-rounded for them as well, and that they do get enough training around play-based program. They get enough about how to engage with students. They get enough around assessments, because when the children are quote unquote playing, we all know they're learning, but when they're doing that, are we being reflective in terms of watching what children are doing, and then what do we do with that information, and how do we build upon that, and do we have enough materials, and do we have the right materials? Are the children bored with those materials, and do we what do we do to add to bring it to the next level where it becomes a little bit more challenging, but not so challenging they can't do it, right? So you got to really be good at doing that assessment piece and tying all those things together while having fun.
I agree. We do a lot of training here too as well. In our particular area, we do lots of different kinds of trainings to, help educators stay abreast of the current topics going on in early childhood education. And a lot of it is all about play-based inquiry and things like that. So I definitely think that's part of it. Let's talk about routines, because a part of the day is routines, bathroom routines, eating, sleeping. There's just general care and nurturing kind of routines. So how do we make play a part of that? Have you ever thought about how to make it playful, even the routine parts of our day?
I think we sing a lot here. I'm Italian, and so I'm very I have a very big personality. And everything we do is kind of bigger than life. So I think, singing, definitely is part of, those routine type of things. Also, I think we do a lot around the social and emotional development when we're cleaning up as well. When a child cleans up something without any assistant, or they've using the broom, or they're using something to clean up. And, I might say to them, wow, you must feel really proud. Look at how you did that without any help. What a great job, So I try to make it so that way children are engaged in the daily routines too. So it's not just like the teacher says this and the teacher guides everything. And even just the way that, like, if there is a mess, that we say, oh my goodness, we've got quite a mess. What do you guys think we should do? Right. And let them lead the cleanup, right? It doesn't always have to be the adult that leads what's going to, happen in what order of those daily routines. So I think that letting the kids have a piece of that, so that it's not so broken up of, okay, we're going to play, that's child directed. Now everything stops and everything is now directed by me, right? So it should be fluid. It should be fluid throughout the day. It should feel like a continuum, not like an interruption of the play.
Yes, agree wholeheartedly. I definitely agree with that. No, what you said made me laugh, because I'm thinking you're right. During work, what we call work time, but it could be, play. We think, oh, it's all child directed. But as soon as we come off of that and go into a routine, whether it's time for nap or it's time for lunch, all of a sudden it goes adult directed. And
Yes.
yeah, you're right. I do need to make it flow a little bit easier, involve children in the decisions, because they're competent and capable, right? They'll know that, oh, this is really messy. We need to clean it up. How can we eat on this table if there's all these toys here?
Right. What do you think we should do next, right? Or something as simple as, and I know that this might sound funny, but something as simple as letting a child decide where their cart is going to be placed in the classroom for nap time. Do you like it near the window? Do you like it near the door? Do you like it in the middle of the room? Right? Because some children have preferences. So rather than the teacher deciding, there may be occasions where, you can't put, Johnny and Susie next to each other. But, giving children as much autonomy as possible, really does make it feel like it is their classroom community too, not so much of like they're a visitor in it, but it is their classroom and they have that decision-making skills. And again, it should be fun, right? When you sleep at grandma's house, when you have a little kid who sleeps at grandma's house, it's nothing but fun, right? There's a reason for that because grandma gives some, choices. Do you want to do this? You want to do that, right? So I think it's, the same thing, just, allowing the day to be fluid. As an adult, understanding that when you're working with young children, there will be messes. There will be periods of time where there might be a tantrum. There might be things that don't go right. Not might be, there will be. There's going to be times of the day that didn't go exactly as planned as you wanted. But then again, be reflective. What did you hope came from it? And then try to find something positive that actually came from it. I think grown-ups sometimes get a little so caught up. I think mindfulness practice also helps keep educators a little bit more even keeled, and it certainly helps in a classroom as well.
I love what you said about autonomy, and what it strikes for me is creating that sense of belonging in the classroom for children. Like really feeling like they belong, like, oh, I get to choose where I'm sleeping, if I'm going to sleep in this side or that side of the classroom, whatever the choices that you can offer. Like you said, sometimes the choices are limited, but you can still offer some kind of a choice. Like, do you want to go here or there? Both options being acceptable to you. So definitely, I see that as creating that sense of belonging. Like, I belong in this classroom. This classroom feels like home. It's a second home.
And I love what you said. Make sure that when you offer choices, they are choices that children actually can pick from. If not, you're setting yourself up and that child up for failure and frustration. So make sure that they are real choices that they can make.
So let's talk a little bit about parents. So when we talk about play-based learning, as you mentioned at the beginning, a lot of parents don't really understand what play-based learning is. They think it's just play, rather than, I like to make the distinction, play-based learning is different than just play. Although we do learn, just through regular free unstructured play. You did mention intent and purpose to our play. And I do believe in childcare, we do create intent and purpose to play, which makes it play-based learning. So can you tell me a little bit about how you have conversations with parents to talk about play-based learning? Let's say if they say, they want to take worksheets home or they want something different than what you're offering. How do you handle that kind of situation?
Well, the first thing is, I think it needs to be, if that's really part of your culture, you're going to see it everywhere. So it's going to be on your website. It's going to be during your tour, when you're giving the tour. You tell people right up front, if you're looking for a workshop school, we're probably not the right fit. That isn't what we do here. Here is what we do and why we do it. The other thing I think is not only educating, because, we're advocates for our field, not only educating the children, but educating the parents. And so part of your parent monthly newsletter should have a curriculum corner, where you highlight one of your standards or one of your play-based programs, like really where you're highlighting what children are learning, include a few photos like the children, digging in the sandbox and the different domains that are connected to that and why you do that and why you select the materials you do. So I think that if you're doing that, again, on your social media, on your Facebook post, like if you're educating parents, they get it pretty quickly. And I can tell you, there's a lot of parents who love it. And, sometimes I hear teachers sometimes apologize, like, oh, they got a little dirty today. And the parents say, That's how I know they had a great day, right? So I tell people this is not a museum school, and I have quite a few museum schools next to me. And I never have a hard time competing with them. Everybody has their own why, like you said, their own philosophy. And I'm not saying anybody's is better than anyone else's. You have to do what feels right for you, for your program, for your children, for your community. And so I think education is key, and it should be part of your culture, and you should see it everywhere. And if you use a porthole app, like we use ProCare, parents will see it every day, and they make that connection to what they're doing in the classroom, how they're doing it, and why. So I think, parent education is key.
But definitely, we do the same thing in our centers. It's constant parent education. It's just not during the tour, because that's easily forgotten, right? It's daily education, whether we're, posting something on an app for parents to see. We link it to, what domains are they learning? What skills are they learning on this particular activity that we're doing? And we do that every day. So parents are constantly seeing that what children are doing is they're constructing their own learning through play, through different activities and experiences they participate in. And I wrote a book called Learn to Play. So I'm big on educating parents about how to play with children and how it really does impact their overall development.
Yeah. And, if somebody who's listening is like really stuck, the other thing you could do too is you can offer workshops at your program, either quarterly or monthly, whatever you have time to. There's a lot of ways to do it. And so our goal is to create lifelong learners. And as adults, here's a perfect example. When you went to elementary school, maybe you liked it. When you went to middle school, maybe you liked it. When you went to college, you probably loved it because you got to pick the classes that you wanted. You got to pick the focus that you wanted in the areas of subject that you like, that you were interested in. And, it's so funny. That's why, there'll be people in high school who have mediocre grades and they go to college and all of a sudden they get A's. The reason is because you typically pick things that you're really interested in. And so it's the same thing with young children. That play-based is they're interested in what they're interested in. So you build off that and how you pull in components that maybe they wouldn't necessarily select. Like maybe a kid wouldn't necessarily select math, but they are always, playing with cars. How can you add math into that play area that they're interested in, right? And so it's things like that. It's that intention when you're creating your lesson plan, however you showcase what you're doing, because we all do it a little differently. But I think, that's important.
I love what you said about, creating different kinds of experiences and bringing math, let's say, into whatever the child's interest is. And the analogy you made with, the college situation, it's true. I experienced that myself where, as soon as I started doing something that I was really interested in, my grades went up. And I'm pretty sure most people can, agree with that
Sure.
when you love what you do, you'll do it better, and you'll do it because you love to do it. And same is true with children.
I worked all weekend because I wanted to, not because I had to. And I did all the things that I love to do. I was setting up classrooms and changing out materials. And it's 100%. If you love what you do and you're passionate about what you do, it's going to just ooze right out of your culture. Really make sure as a teachers are listening at, if you're not at a program that is really aligned with your teaching philosophy and culture, move, go to a different location, because it's really important, because you'll be a better teacher when you're inspired and you have that autonomy, even as a teacher, to pick, what you want to do. Because there are some people who don't believe in play-based, like you said, Susie, right? There are some people who are heck bent on flashcards and dittos, and that's okay. And there's schools for them too. But it's just not how I prefer to teach, not how you prefer to teach. And we all know research says, children do better when it's play-based.
100%. And I just love what you said about children getting a better program when the teacher is engaged and the teachers align with the philosophy that they're teaching. I really do believe that it impacts the children in the end of the day. Yeah. So wonderful words of wisdom. Thank you. So tell my listeners how they can get in touch with you, how they can see more of your stuff. Tell us a little bit about how to reach out to you.
Sure. So it's Childcare Director's Chair on YouTube. and Childcare Directors Chair podcast on any listening platform. And we have a Facebook and an Instagram, all the same name, Childcare Directors Chair podcast. Pretty easy to find us, or just pull up the hashtag, you'll find us. If you have a topic that you want us to cover, let us know. We'll be happy to do that too.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today. It was lovely speaking to you. I'm sure we could go on for hours talking about early childhood education. So I'm back to talk a little bit more about play-based learning and what it means to me. It was nice to talk with Erica about play-based learning and get her viewpoint on how she sees it. And it's very much aligned to what I believe play-based learning is all about as well. Play-based learning to me is more than just unstructured free play. Yes, that's part of play-based learning, but play-based learning also requires a little bit of intent, a little bit of purpose. So when we are engaging with children, we're purposeful in our engagement. I do agree that yes, free unstructured play is definitely necessary and is needed. But play-based learning is much, much more than that. Yes, we do play with children, we do follow their lead, but we also need to create some intent to make that play purposeful, to make it intentional. This is something I'm really passionate about, so much so that I wrote a book, and it's called Learn to Play. And in this book, I talk about 5 key principles of play. Whether I'm an educator or a parent dealing with my own children, these principles are always top of mind in terms of how to engage with children and be playful with them. So I want to share them here. The first principle is to follow the child's lead. Children need to have choice in order to make play meaningful and fun for themselves. It can never be forced. It needs to be full, free choice. That means I follow what the children want to do. I engage in play that they want to engage in. So you might be asking, how do you make the play purposeful if you're just following the lead of the child? And this is where principle number 2 comes in, engaging in meaningful conversation. Conversation is where a lot of the learning will happen. The conversations that I'm going to engage in with children are really going to be meaningful and purposeful and create that intent and that purpose to the play. So while I'm playing with Play-Doh, we might be talking about all kinds of things. We might be talking about spaceships because we're making spaceships, and we're talking about space and how do you go into space and is there any air in space? You know, we can be going in so many different directions in our conversation. So engaging in play involves meaningful conversation, and that's principle number 2. Principle number 3 is to ask open-ended questions. By open-ended questions, what I mean is that there's no specific right or wrong answer. There's no yes or no answer. It's open-ended so that children have creativity and imagination to express themselves in any way they choose. So like again, the situation where I'm playing with some Play-Doh. A child makes a round disc. Do I just simply say, is that a cookie? Or do I say, what did you make? Which one is the more open-ended question? Obviously, if I say, what did you make? That leaves it open to interpretation and imagination, rather than bringing in assumptions. Another thing I want to avoid when I'm asking open-ended questions is to avoid testing the child. So I don't want to ask questions like, what letter is that? What number is this? Again, those are closed-ended questions that only have a specific answer. Instead, I would label things for the child. I would say, I see you're holding the red block. I see you have the letter A in your hand. And I would label things rather than ask testing questions, which just creates a stressful environment for the child. The 4th principle of play is to play at the child's physical level so that we can have eye contact, eye to eye. Eye contact is important in play. It creates that trust between play partners to have eye contact at the same level. Also, it diminishes that power relationship. You as an adult and them as a child, there's already a specific power relationship there where you are superior to them. So in order to level that playing field, you need to be at the same physical eye level. That means you need to get on the ground if they're on the ground. If they're on the carpet, you need to sit on the carpet. If they're at the table, you sit at the table, rather than standing or towering over children. And the fifth principle of play is to engage in both free play and intentional play. So free play, again, is unstructured free play, and I'm going to engage in that with the child, where they make up whatever play scenario they want, and I participate in that play scenario. Intentional play is where I have a specific purpose in mind, so I've created an activity or a play experience to help the child to gain a particular skill or perhaps to learn a particular concept. And I do that in a playful way, and I do it in a subtle way that is not directing, but still allows the child to direct the play and learn as a result. So these are the 5 key principles of play. I really feel that these 5 key principles of play are crucial to creating that environment that children feel safe and feel able to engage in play and explore their curiosities and inquiries in a fun and safe way. Thanks for tuning in to the ECE Classroom with Susie Begin. For more information, you can visit our website at www.susiebegin.com. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast so you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. Thanks for listening.